Hey everyone, it's Egwin from Scope of Life. I get asked a lot how to actually do stretching properly. And we talk about how often to repeat the stretches, how long to actually stay in them, how to maybe combine them for the best possible outcome, and also which type of stretching to use. There is so many different options when we talk about stretching. There is passive stretching, active stretching, dynamic stretching, PNF stretching, easy stretching, conscious stretching. So there are many different ways to do it, and probably much more than there is a terminology for. First thing you have to think about and to get clear in yourself is what do you personally want to achieve with your stretching. Do you just want to improve your overall health and mobility? Do you want to improve your explosiveness, your agility for sports? Do you just want to lengthen some very tight muscles? What is it that you really want? Do you maybe just want to stretch in order to improve your immune system, to get rid of toxins? What is it that you really want from stretching? The next thing we have to think about is how could we possibly do a stretch or a stretching sequence in such a way that it's sustainable for the body. Sustainable for the body means to perform it in such a way that it is really healthy without injuring you in the process. Now there are certain types of stretching that will injure you a little, but you'll gain a lot of length in a rather short period of time. If that's your goal, okay, I always suggest the more healthy approach to stretching, which doesn't mean it's less effective in the outcome, but maybe it takes a little longer, which is something that I would definitely invest if you want a sustainable, healthy body. Now let's jump right into it. Let's jump right into stretching. How long to actually stretch? Difficult to say because it depends on the person, it depends on the stretch, it depends even on your daily situation, on your daily muscle tension, how you actually feel at a certain given time. So to say you have to stay in the stretch for 35 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes is just not possible in this way. The most important thing with stretching is you have to learn to listen to your body, and you have to learn and to know a little about the anatomy of your body in order to stretch in a healthy way. Now what do I mean by listen to your body? By listen to a body, I mean every single stretch should be a conscious stretch, meaning that you actually connect with your body, with your awareness, and that you actually make yourself consciously aware of what is going on. So performing any type of stretch, no matter if standing just before you go for a run and just want to warm up your muscles a little bit, or if you literally take your time, take half an hour or an hour, take your mat and get down on the mat to do some serious stretching work, no matter which it is. It's always, first rule, very important to be conscious about what you're doing and not to do any other things aside of that. So when you're stretching, you're not talking with your friend, you're not chattering about tomorrow, you're just simply conscious here and there in this moment, you with this muscle, with this body part of yours, trying to perceive it on a conscious level, which is possible. You might not have this mind for it right now, in terms of, you might say, well, yeah, I feel when it hurts, but it's difficult to actually be completely aware of what the muscle is doing, of feeling different aspects of the muscle. It might be difficult at first, especially when you haven't done it for a long time, or haven't used this ability for a long time, but it is absolutely possible for every human being because that's basic physiology. Everything that's going on in your body is something that you can perceive if you train yourself to do so. So, when we talk about stretching and about how long to stretch, go into a stretch, go into a position for stretch. Go into it as long as it's, or as far as it's possible, with ease. Don't try to push you to 100 or 120%, just go into the position with ease. Recognize how your body feels in that specific moment, in that specific stretch. Feel the body part that you want to stretch, feel the muscle that you want to stretch, but also feel the adjacent joints, feel the other parts of your body and how they actually feel in this specific moment. This is important in order to give you an idea of how your body works on this specific day, how much tension there is in your body on this specific day. When you wake up in the morning, your stretchability, your stretching ability will be different than when you do stretching in the afternoon. That's just natural and it's not the same every day. Alright, so when you go into a stretch, no matter which it is, go into this position of the stretch, get used to it, just feel, okay, how is my body doing today? Yeah, okay, like that. Then try to relax as much as possible to go into the actually starting stretching position. Now this is kind of the beginning of a passive stretch, but I say kind of because actually it should be the beginning of every type of stretching. To position yourself into the perfect body position first and then actually do the stretch. And this positioning into the right body structure, the right body position, this is actually something that should be done consciously every time, no matter how often you've gone into this stretch before. Alright, now say you're in this stretch and you sink into it, say to maybe roughly 80-90% of what you know you could do if you just go for it with everything you've got. Take your time in this position and give the muscle time to relax. Wait for this very first relaxation impulse that comes out of the muscle itself. So when you go into a stretch and you give yourself time, you're not completely end gaining, focusing on the maximum stretching amount you can possibly get, but you're focusing on the process, meaning you focus on, okay, I'm here now, I'm now at 85 or 90% of my stretching ability, and this is how it feels. And then give yourself time, relax. Wait until the muscle is used to this position. That's not a maybe the muscle relaxes, it's only a when does the muscle relax. So it's only a question of time. It will eventually relax when you calm your mind, you calm yourself, and you take your time and give your muscle the time it actually needs. You get in the position, wait for this very first relaxation aspect of the muscle. If you just want to, say, warm up stretch, this would already be enough. Then give yourself, after this first relaxation impulse, a couple of seconds, then get back out of the stretch and go for whatever you want to do. If you want to go deeper into it, perform it for a longer time, literally work on lengthening the muscle properly, lengthening the muscle because muscle has a certain set length. It's only the consciousness that holds it tight. That's another very important basic concept of stretching, unless you've had a sports injury in this muscle. Anyway, different story. If you really want to work longer on it, then I suggest you go into it, wait for this first relaxation impulse, go a little deeper into the stretch, say to 95%, wait for the next relaxation aspect, let yourself drop a little deeper into the stretch, say to 100%, and then maybe wait, if you can, for another relaxation aspect, and then go for it. Waiting, I mean literally, be conscious about what's going on in your muscle, don't force it, but wait until the muscle is comfortable and you feel you can consciously connect with your muscle and say, and now let go. In order to be able to do that, as mentioned before, it's also a very good thing to know your anatomy, to know how muscles and joints work together. This is very, very important, because if you just give the impulse of relaxation to a muscle, just tell a muscle to relax, that works quite well if you have your arm lifted and you say just let the arm drop. You can do that. Most people can. Some can't because they are so used to working all the time and acting out all the time. You say let the arm drop and they say well, can't do it. Literally, I've seen that. And the other part is, when you're doing this, you really have to be in this position where you know in which direction do I have to actually release the muscle. There is something like directional release ability in your muscle, but in order to be able to use that, you have to know how to actually use it. That's something that I teach in my natural movement classes and in all my conscious bodywork classes, and also in my re-inhabiting teacher trainings and stuff like that. So that's really a very important part of how to work with your body, and it's a basic thing. That's something everyone should know. That's not something very advanced, it's something everyone should know. The next stage, so this would be a suggestion for a passive stretch. Obviously, how long it actually takes to do that depends on your physical condition on this very day, on your mindset on this very day, on your emotional state on this very day, as how long does it actually take the muscle to be able to relax. So actually the muscle gives you the timing. Once you've done that, I'll always roll out of the position, get out of the position, and give the muscle some time, say 10 seconds, 15 seconds, maybe half a minute, before you actually start using it again. So when you are in a position, don't just get up instantly using the same muscle that you've just been stretching if you've gone deeper into the position. Give the muscle time to adjust to this new experience. Then and only then will you be able to incorporate this new experience into your daily life, into your sport for good. That's what we're aiming here for. Another thing, just a minor side note, because some people sometimes are concerned about passive stretching and over-mobilizing, hyper-mobilizing their joints. There is no such thing as hypermobilization as long as you work in your muscle and as long as you don't try to actually actively stretch your tendon apparatus. Your sinews and tendons, they are part of your muscle joint connection, obviously. But as long as you're working on your muscle and on training the muscle to relax, the only thing that matters additional is that you are actually capable of a good coordination between agonist and antagonist muscle groups, between muscles that support or inhibit a certain movement. If you're able to coordinate your muscles in a perfect way, then there is no such thing than overmobilization, because the muscles in themselves will always balance movement out and will always make sure that your body is in a state of equilibrium when it comes to its physical perfect structure. Okay, let's jump right into some other stretching aspects, like would I do this stretch instantly again? Say I've stretched my right hip flexor for a couple of minutes using the method I just described. After that, stretching my left hip flexor. No, I wouldn't do a second set of stretching right away. If you want to work on the same muscle, then use a different technique, a different approach to that muscle if you want to work it a second time. Otherwise, I suggest always try to work on different muscles in one stretching set. Also agonist antagonistic muscles, say the thigh muscles, and also work on your calves, also work on your hip flexor, also work on your piriformis muscle, and so on, so that you get this overall workout. This is quite important actually, because this is what actually helps you with your intermuscular coordination. If you only stretch one muscle and the other muscle, the antagonistic muscle, is not stretched at all, then you'll reach a level at a certain point and it won't go any further, because the body knows it needs its internal equilibrium. It needs the muscles on two sides of a joint to be more or less same effective. Otherwise, there is an imbalance in the body that is more work for the body, so it won't let you go into that. It's always important to work different muscle groups. The next part, dynamic stretching. Well, dynamic stretching is an interesting approach. It actually means you go into a certain stretching position and then you sort of choose a rhythm and constantly bend into it. This is one of the most dangerous stretching approaches that there is. If you have the wrong rhythm, if you are too fast, you'll trigger the muscle reflex of contraction. If you go over that reflex, you'll have minor muscle torns, so meaning that muscle fibers will start to rip apart, which is then what you feel as, oh, okay, now my muscle is really sore. It can give you length and extreme explosiveness if you do it correctly. If you do it wrong, it can actually damage you a lot. You can also train explosiveness without using dynamic stretching, without using this whipping stretching. It's not a problem, and it's easily possible. But let's talk about that another time, because otherwise this video just simply gets too long. There is another part about dynamic stretching. With dynamic stretching, you always have to know, what do you actually want this joint to do? So if you perform dynamic stretching in order to get a certain movement in your sports disciplines to a higher level, you can do that, obviously, but you have to know even more about anatomy and physiology and about how all the muscle groups work together in order to be able to do this stretching and use this stretch in a healthy way. Another active form of stretching would be PNF stretching. PNF stretching is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretch, and it's a very complicated word, obviously. In general, it means you are using the automatic muscle reflex to your advantage. Now, there are two main reflexes. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video in greater detail, but mainly there are two reflexes. One, you're using dynamic stretching in order to get this springiness, this jumpiness. This is, if you stretch a muscle too fast, it will automatically contract, because this contraction is at the muscle trying to protect itself from being torn apart. In proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, you do something completely different. You go in a position and you actively work with the muscle that you're trying to stretch, but not all the time. So say I have my left foot stretched out here. I'm gonna bend a little bit to the front, say to, just to show you a little, just say, okay, I go to maybe 80-85% of what I could possibly do to the front. So I'm not stretching the muscle to 100% right away. From that, next thing is not, I don't try to go deeper, no. What I do now is I try to actually, now obviously it's working on my hamstrings here. What I do is actually I try to use my hamstrings. What for do you use the hamstrings? You use the hamstrings to actually bend the knee, to do this motion. When the leg is on the ground, you obviously can't bend your leg, but you can try to do so. So it's literally as if you were trying to pull the heel towards you, but the ground is in your way. So in this position, going down 70-80% of what you could do in your stretching, maybe even 80-85% if you're warmed up already. You go into this position and now you actively engage your hamstring muscles, trying to bend your leg, trying to bend your left leg. Contract to say around 60-70% of the power available in your hamstrings. Just make sure that your knee doesn't actually come up, so you just have one hand here, you don't press down in your knee, it's just simply resting here. And you try to bend your leg and give it a 10 count or a 20 count. Then relax, meaning let go of the active tension. Wait a couple of seconds until the muscle adapts to the new situation, and then bend deeper with your body. Give it another 10-15% deeper. Now relax a little bit here. Once again, give the body time to adjust, and then do it again. Try to bend your, in my case, left knee. Give it a 10 count again. I shorten it here a little bit. Then again, relax. Wait until the feeling, the tensional feeling in the muscle is gone to the front and to the rear. And then once again, move deeper into the stretch. And so on. So that's proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretching. This is actually a stretch that gives you a lot of length in a very short period of time. It's a stretch that is especially used by professional sportsmen in rehabilitation or also in preparing for different types of sports events. And this is a really good way of stretching. So if you ask me, I'd say if you want to work on a muscle, try different approaches. Don't use just one single approach. So for instance, if I want to work on my hamstrings, do the stretch I've just showed you. Do a stretch where, for instance, you're actually in such a position. Do a stretch where you're standing and you're bending to the front. So use different approaches. Use approaches where you don't always go to 100% of what your muscle can do. So sometimes just simply go into a standing position and just simply move your hip from the left and to the right in gently bending to the front, just to warm up the muscles and work the different aspects, the different bodies of this specific muscle group. And that's actually how you perform stretching in a quite healthy way. Yoga is a specific thing because you can apply some of those principles I've been talking about here in yoga, but yoga is not stretching alone. And I don't want to go into greater detail about that right now because it's a lot to talk about. Does in any case, does in no case mean that yoga is bad. Not at all. I love yoga, but you have to do to know what you do with it. And stretching to gain length and yoga is just simply not the same. As I said, you can apply, for instance, PNF principles to yoga, but in yoga there is a lot more going on because you never ever focus on one single body part alone. When you do your stretching and you want to work your muscles precisely, I do, however, suggest you focus specifically on this area and try not to do any other fancy things with your body. That's yoga. If you really want to work with specific muscle groups, target them specifically for a specific reason, then do so in the easiest possible way. So try to, all the additional fancy things with, and if I'm in this position I could additionally stretch my shoulder muscles or something like that. Let it go. Work on one muscle at a time, then work the antagonist muscle, and by doing so you'll generate what you could call a nice stretching equilibrium, mobility equilibrium in your body without ever having to think about whether or not you overmobilize or you're badly coordinated. So that's basically it for now. We're gonna make sure to go into greater detail about some of the principles in the future, in some future clips. So once again, wrapped up very tightly, there is no specific thing to say, stay in your stretches for 30 seconds or for 1 minute or for 5 minutes. It depends on your body. You have to learn to listen to your body. You have to learn your body mechanics and your anatomy. You have to know what your body is capable of doing at a certain given time. That gives you the amount of time you need to spend in the stretch. And there is one more stretching aspect that can be very efficient, which is conscious stretching, actually active conscious stretching. This is the type of stretching that takes the longest time, because you go into a muscle, you go into a stretch, and not only do you work on this specific muscle as one big thing, you actually work on different muscle fibers, different parts of this muscle. You work in the end regions where it connects with tendons, with sinews, with the joints. You actually work with the other body parts in order to allow them to readjust when the muscle lengthens and readjusts. And this is the part where you can even jump a little deeper in the whole thing. And you can go as far as say, alright, I'm gonna use this muscle, I'm gonna go deep into it, and I'm gonna allow all the emotional and mental aspects that are stored in this tension also to surface, and I work on them in order to give the muscle another support for relaxation. This comes with the basic principle that most of the muscle shortnesses in the body, muscle tightness in the body, actually comes from inhibiting mental patterns, from unresolved emotional issues, from traumas in this area. Unless we're talking about actually a sports injury where, say, a muscle was torn or something like that. But other than that, most of the stiffness in the body actually comes from our daily way of using it. When you don't use your body, in a very all-around way all the time. Say you just go to work, sit around, you go back home, sit around in front of the TV, sit in your car in between. If that's what you're doing all the day, all the week, then at a certain point you lose mobility, because your body just simply, literally over years and years and years, literally unlearns how to actually engage certain muscle areas, which will then limit your ability to move. You can get all those things back, you can get your mobility back, and you can retrain your body to remember how it is possible to use all parts of it, how it is possible to use the whole range of movement, how it is possible to use the whole length of your muscles. And this is part of conscious stretching work, where you go into your stretch, but where you, as mentioned, allow yourself all the different things that block you personally to surface, that might be stored in this tension. So that's all I want to say to all those things for now. Make sure that when you do your stretching, you perform a couple of stretches for different muscles in each stretching set. This is to make sure that your internal coordination and your mobility equilibrium is stable and is always maintained. Take your time to learn, to reconnect, and to actually feel, to sense your body. I'm not talking spiritual, energetic feeling here. I'm literally talking body response, tactile response. When you use your finger and you just scratch your thigh muscles, you feel that. That's a sensation. Every single muscle in your body sends back information to your brain. The most important thing for stretching is always to get this connectedness to oneself back and to get the awareness back of how to perceive these sensations. And that's the most important thing. Hope there were some very interesting things for you again. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe or just click like. You can also check out more information about that on my blog at www.scopeoflife.com. If you have any further questions, make sure to comment, or if there are any other specific videos you'd like me to make, or specific areas you'd want me to go into greater detail about, just let me know. Other than that, I wish you a very good day. Have fun applying all the new information that I just gave you in your own workout routine, and have a wonderful time. See you around. Bye!